Don't jinx us, Wade.
Live.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 137 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable. I am your host, Wade Finnegan, and I'm back after a couple-week hiatus, so hi everyone. Joining me tonight, as always, is Xavier Granville. Hello, Xavier.
Yo, internets.
I love his Russian accent. And Erica Conroy.
Hi-ho!
We are joined tonight by two special guests, not one, but two special guests. We have Ivy Sinclair.
Hello.
Hello, Ivy. And Jim Johnson.
Hi, folks.
And we brought them on tonight because they are in the midst of stuff that we've been talking about a lot, and that is the idea of writing quickly, or what we call pulp speed. And it has a little bit of controversy to it. I would guess is the right word for it, about writing quickly, whether or not that's a good thing to do or not. And Jim's had a Pulp Speeders group that he runs, and then also he was doing a kind of like a challenge, a 3 novels in 3 months thing. So really cool. And then Ivy just had a post on our blog not that long ago, a couple days ago, and she talked about how she wrote 28,000 words in 2 days, which if you haven't read it after you watch the live show tonight, go back and read that because it's a really good post. Really interesting to see how she goes about that. So we're going to talk about writing fast and why it's good, why it's maybe not so good at sometimes or whatever, and pitfalls and a whole bunch of other things, and we'll just pick their brains in general. So just for those people that maybe haven't heard of you guys, I'll have you do just a quick little introduction about your writing life. So Ivy, would you mind starting first on that?
No, happy to. And hey, everybody. So I have been an indie published author since November of 2011. I actually have 2 pen names. So Ivy Sinclair, of course, is how I'm showing up today. I write paranormal romance suspense. Definitely everything that I write has some kind of paranormal element to it, and I think that's because I grew up on, Stephen King, like many people did. And I have published about, I lost track, about 55 titles in the last 4 years or so, both novels and novella-length stories, and so definitely writing fast is a big part of that. So happy to, chat about that today because it's a key part of how I write so much so quickly and still maintain a day job.
Oh, so you're still doing both. You're not in writing full time.
I
Wow.
am.
That's awesome. And Jim, would you like to do the same, please?
Absolutely. So I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum from Ivy. I've been writing probably for 25, 30 years, but I only really started self-publishing last October. Still just 3 titles out right now, working on more. And let's see, member of SIFWA, and I was one of the members who was on the committee to get indie credentials into the organization. So if you're an indie and you want to join SIFWA, then by all means do so. But they finally opened up the guidelines to allow independent writers as opposed to traditional published. But as far as my writing, I also use Stephen King as an inspiration, but on a different end of things. I loved his Dark Tower series, and used that as an idea to work on a weird Western series. That was my first series I started with last year, and got 3 books of that published, and moving on to urban fantasy right now, and then I've got some other stuff that I'll work on eventually as well. And just throughout the last several years, I've found that writing faster has made a big difference in what I do.
Cool. Very cool. So when we talk about writing fast, let's try to get a little bit of consensus here about what kind of speeds we're talking about, because we talk about this pulp speed idea, and so I was just kind of curious what your guys' take was on what is writing fast, per se.
And I'm happy to start. So I would say that I'm probably on an extreme end of this. So I think 10,000 words a day is a really good goal for me to try and do when I'm doing my condensed writing schedules. And I've started leveraging some new things that I think we'll talk about in a little bit. But I'd say being able to get 10,000 words down in a day in some type of sprint fashion is writing fast for me.
And for you, Jim?
Yep, I also write in sprints. I do 30-minute sprints. That's a technique I picked up along the way. And right now, between the day job and taking care of a 6-month-old, along with my wife, I can manage maybe 3 or 4 sprints a day. So I'm averaging around 4,500 to 6,000 words a day on a good day. Yeah, I can't sustain that consistently yet, but on the challenge I've been doing so far, last 30 days, it's been right around 4,000 words a day.
Cool.
Do you want to tell us quickly, well, explain to the listeners what your challenge exactly is?
Oh, sure. So the challenge I set for myself was to write 3 novels in 3 months, 3 full-length novels before I publish any of them. So it's an urban fantasy trilogy. Each one I estimated around 90,000 words a piece. And this is we're at the end of March, and I finished the first one a couple days ago, and spent today outlining the second one, and I'll start working on the second one tomorrow. And I'll be writing that one as I edit the first one. So I'm giving myself plenty of time to write the 3 together, and then I'll edit them as I go, and then hopefully by the end of I guess May, I'll have 3 full books that are all pretty coherent, and then I'll publish the first one in June.
Yay, Jim!
Yeah.
Get the first one done. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna follow up question on that real quick. So how do you divide? How are you gonna divide your day with the editing versus writing thing?
I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
So what might happen, because I figured out about 3 weeks into the writing of the first book, I realized that I was moving I was writing so much words, so far ahead of my goal, that I actually ended up with like a week of time at the end of the month. And I think what I'll do is I'll cut down the number of sprints I do in a day. So instead of doing 3 or 4 sprints a day, I'll do like 2 sprints a day, because that way I'm still getting my 3,000 words a day in, and then I'll have an hour to write and then an hour to edit. And I think between the 2, I'll be able to balance the workload between them.
It's hard. It's really hard.
It is hard, along with life and everything else that happens.
Right.
But I think having a month, and this is something that Dean Wesley Smith talks about, having a streak. Once you get that streak going, then you don't want to stop, and you want to find a way. How am I going to find that hour to work? And you find it in the beginning of the day, or later in the day, or take a long lunch break or something. You find a way to get to the keyboard to get those words down.
I take it you're still working a day job full time too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have a young baby.
I do. Yep. He's 6 months old last week.
Wow.
And he's doing great. Apparently he was at daycare today, and apparently he flipped over for the first time. So we're super excited.
Awesome.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yes, it is great being a new parent, but man, trying to do all this and being a new parent, that's
it's hardcore. It's hardcore, but the most important thing is that I have a super supportive spouse, and there's no way I could have written 900. There's no way I could have written 90,000 words in a month without her support. So,
How many cups of coffee?
Actually, I don't drink coffee, but I drink an awful lot of Cherry Coke Zero. So that's my caffeine.
Okay. The second question was cocaine.
No, I need to stay clean for my clearance. So
one of those jobs.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next? Erica or X? You fire off a question.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I guess both of you, how do you each individually approach getting to those pulp speeds or achieving warp speed or whatever it is? Like, what's your individual methodologies of actually sitting down and doing that?
So I outlined quite a bit of this in the post that I had posted last week, and it's pretty much the same, even though now I've moved into using dictation. So when I wrote that post, I was still typing at a keyboard. I think part of it is just having a deadline. Knowing, having goals is really, I think, an important piece of it. That creates a lot of positive anxiety. I try and put it as positive anxiety. And then it's really about finding the time and preparing. So there's a big piece of what I do that's all about, I'm thinking about how am I going to make sure that I'm set up for success when I sit down to do the writing. And so there is an element of outlining too. I try not to do too much outlining because my characters will go off and do their own thing as they see fit. But having some structure does really help. So at least, and that's, I think, Rachel Aaron's, 2K to 10K. She was talking about if you even just spend a couple minutes before you start typing, thinking about what you're going to do that day and cover off on that, you can usually get your word count in. So as far as setting up before I sit down to actually do anything, it's knowing what my deadline is, having the set time that I know that I'm going to do it, and then having an idea, at least, of what I'm going to write.
How about for you, Jim?
Very similar, I think. So I've found over the years that having some sort of preparation ahead of time really helps. And what I do is I do a thin outline. So when I've got a book to work on, and I know that, like for instance, the novel I'm working on now, I estimated it would need 60 chapters to tell the full story. So I used Scrivener and I did note cards for each scene, and then on each note card it was like maybe a sentence, maybe 2 sentences about what that scene and chapter was going to be about. What was the characters doing, what were the emotions I was trying to hit, and then so with that framework, and this was built partially off of Libby Hawker's Take Off Your Pants. Just using her book as kind of a idea generator to figure out the beats of a story. I mean, it's a classic 3-act structure, but you can move the parts around quite a bit. So having that rough outline in hand to serve as the guideposts of where I want to go, that's really all I need. So I've got that, and then the tools I use. I don't use dictation because I don't think and write that way, but I use my AlphaSmart Neo, and I just do those 30-minute sprints. So I just sit down with my stack of note cards and say, okay, here's the scene I'm going to write, and then bang, I'm off and running. I set a timer, a 30-minute timer, and I'm off and running. And I guess I've been doing this long enough now that like you get into the flow state, I can pretty much turn it on and turn it off. So if I know I have a 30-minute block of time that I know is going to be uninterrupted, I can just grab the Neo, sit down, and go, and write for half an hour and try to push through as much of that scene or chapter as I can. So having that structure in hand is really key to the speed that I'm able to write at.
I think Jim brings up a really good point because it sounds like we've both been writing for a while, and so that whole idea of being able to sit down and just go, I think that's really hard for people who don't have the background of sitting down to write like that. And so for me, it was doing National Novel Writing Month a couple of times, like 12 years ago, and the idea of packing away your internal editor, like that idea has stuck with me this entire time, because otherwise you stop, you get stuck, you go, oh, that word isn't right. You just keep going. You just have to keep going. You can fix all of that later. So send the internal editor off for a drink on a beach somewhere and just write. And don't even think about it. It's about quantity on the first draft. You can do the quality on the revision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important pieces of advice I ever learned was, again, from Dean Wesley Smith. He said, dare to be bad. No matter how you're writing, just get the story out of your head and on the paper as fast as possible. Don't think about it. Don't let your internal editor make you second guess it, because he will or she will, whatever, because that's their job, is to stop you. And because you can't edit what doesn't exist, right? You can't massage something that you don't have. So get it on paper as quick as you can, and then you can start playing with it. I think I've got 3 or 4 novels in the trunk that were novels written, as the navel gazing, right? You sit there and you stare at the keyboard and you write a really great sentence, and then a week later you write another great sentence, and then a couple words, and then it never gets done because you're screwing around with it and you don't actually finish it. So once I learned how to turn off that internal editor and just get the words out, things really started to click for me.
Good point. What do you guys do when you do get interrupted? Because I know you both prescribe sprints. What happens if that sprint gets cut off?
When I have my phone and I'm like, damn it,
Yeah.
Stop. What do you want, dear? Because that's what my husband will start talking to me when I'm in the middle of a sprint. That happens a lot. And it's really just taking a breath and then resettling and then getting back into it. So I usually don't read more than the last paragraph that I wrote. I don't go back and read anything else. A going back to what Jim was just saying too, because the internal editor will stop you if you start going back and revising words. So it's just enough of a snippet to catch your thought where you were, and then you keep going. And I heard somebody talk about they end their sprints in the middle of a sentence, and they do that very deliberately, so you can just kind of pick back up and go.
Oh yeah, yeah. So similarly, if I get interrupted, I'll pause the timer. Like if I'm 22 minutes into a sprint, I'll pause the timer, deal with the interruption, whatever it is, and then I'll just pick it up right where I left off, so that I know I'm still getting that half hour in. I'm not giving up on the sprint. I'm still getting that half hour in. And similar to what Ivy does, with the AlphaSmart Neo, the display screen on it is so small, I can only see like 3 or 4 lines prior to what I wrote. So wherever I am, I can't really look at the real estate of the page or the chapter, whatever that I'm working on. So it's not even worth it to go back and try to edit, because it's such a small screen. It's not, using the keyboard and the arrow keys. It's just not worth it. So it's better to just look at the 3 or 4 lines that I wrote and then just plow forward and continue on, whatever train of thought I was on, and just keep going and then finish it. Whether it's in that sprint or the next sprint. Sometimes a sprint, I won't finish a chapter or a scene in one sprint, and like Ivy said, that means I'm just stopping mid thought, and that's okay, because I'll get up and take a break. Go for a walk, get a drink or something, and then come back to it. And then that next sprint, I'm so fired up because I know exactly where I'm going, and I've been thinking about it. And then the second sprint is probably even faster because I've got a running start, basically, heading into it.
Interesting. And so you said you outline in Scrivener, but you write in just in the AlphaSmart.
Yeah. The AlphaSmart's been my first draft machine for like 10 years now. And I love it because it's distraction free. There's no internet, there's no games, there's nothing on it other than just being able to put words down. And for me, that helped me with my discipline, because if I'm writing on Scrivener, like even today when I was editing in Scrivener, I was so distracted because the internet's right there. I get the Facebook pop-ups on my screen, and I get this and I get that, and it's like, okay, I can't do this. I wish there was a better way to edit, but this is, I've got to be on the computer to edit, so I need to come up with one of those app blockers or something to just physically turn it off so that I don't look at it.
How about you, Ivy? What do you use to write with?
So I've been a Word, just straight Word for a long time. So when I'm typing, I just type right into Word. But otherwise, I'm using. I've started to train my Dragon, so I use Dragon dictation, and that's what I've been using since the beginning of February. And wow, it has increased my already pretty fast output, even way beyond my wildest expectations. So I wrote 4 novels in February,
awesome.
And I published 3 of them at the beginning of March. So that was the whole deadline. I decided to do something kind of like a Netflix idea. So I decided, oh yeah, I'll put pre-orders out for March 2nd, 9th, and 16th for a trilogy that's on February 1st. I had nothing. I didn't even have word 1 on any of them. So
that is some freaking pressure right there.
Exactly. Wow. So, and I still am not quite sure how I did it, and I also, Jim, I have a supportive spouse too, but that was insane. He was basically like, "You're not doing that anymore." That was crazy. I had no social life at all.
Wow. But you said you work a day job too, right?
I do. Yeah.
Wow. I need to look into dictation software.
It's fantastic.
Really?
Once you kind of get through the mental part of I'm talking out loud and I'm saying punctuation and things like that, it really starts to flow. And I can do it then when I'm out and about, and so I test it both ways, if I'm just dictating straight into my computer or if I'm doing it on the go. And I'm averaging about 100 words a minute on that. So I'm getting that 10,000 words in, an hour, a little over an hour and a half.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So
that's amazing.
Crazy.
Brilliant.
Crazy.
So you guys have been talking lots about positives here, and it does sound very positive. Do you have anything that you might be thinking that might be a little negative to be writing fast?
I think it's, you were talking about it, Wade, just right at the beginning, that the idea of writing fast, pulp speed is kind of controversial in general. Mm-hmm. And so I'm one of those people that I love sharing what I'm doing, that I think that can help other writers. And that's something, so I try to be really generous with my wisdom. I feel like I've gotten a ton of that in the indie community. Like, we're all so supportive of each other, sharing tips and techniques and tricks and everything. But I've been very cautious about talking about my pulp speed writing, just because I know that it inevitably will bring up the debate about quality. And that's the one thing that I see my reviews. I know that I'm still, I've got great reviews. You're always going to get bad reviews. You can't, stop that. So I kind of measure how things are going by how the reviews kind of pop things up. And I'd say with only one exception, what I've been doing across the board, I've been really proud of my work. So I think that it's all about what you do on the revision side. I'm talking about first draft writing when I'm talking about pulp speed writing. What I do for my revisions is completely different. So, and it takes twice as long. So that's another stat that I've been tracking a lot of metrics around the dictation piece. For every hour that I am transcribing or I'm doing on the dictation, it's taking me 2 hours to do the editing. That's about what I'm finding, and that's just the first draft or the first round editing. Then you have the proofing and all of that. So there's still, I do have a trade-off on the other side where my editing is taking longer.
On a similar note, I noticed, like in the first month of this challenge, the first week really, I was moving so fast so I was writing like 6,000 words a day, but I noticed that the last sprint of every day was just full of typos, right? Just full of, just misprints and typos and just blurred words getting together, because I was moving so fast and I wasn't really thinking about it. But what that meant, like what Ivy was saying, is that it meant more back-end time to fix those errors, because normally I write pretty clean copy, and so like the first couple sprints, there might be 1 or 2 typos through the whole thing, but then that third or fourth sprint at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to spend an hour just fixing these stupid typos. When if I had just forced myself to slow down a little bit, then it would have been, much more cleaner. So that's one potential negative. I think the real big negative, though, is the perception that's still out there, the myth, like Ivy was saying, that writing fast equals crap. That you can't possibly be writing quality work if you're writing 6,000, 7,000 words a day, 10,000 words a day, whatever. You're a hack. You're nothing special. And I see this myth come up all the time on like Absolute Right and Kboards and other circles and stuff. And it's like, sometimes I think it's some writers' insecurities getting the best of them, because like maybe they can write 100 words a day or 100 words a week or something, and they see someone like Ivy or Amanda Lee or something just blowing out 28,000 words in 2 days or 50,000 words a week or something. And they're like, well, there's no way I can do that. So they must be writing junk. So that it's hard to. Actually, earlier it was hard to fight that battle, but now I just don't care. I got books to write. I'm not going to fight that battle for anybody. If that's their perception, that's their thing.
Well, I think that's a major debate with a lot of people. That's, like you said, it's quality versus quantity. And when you look at it like that, sure, okay, in total black and white terms, right, that might make a big difference to you as either a writer or a reader. But history has shown that you can have your cake and eat it too, folks.
Right, and I think the tricky thing for me, and once I figured this out, it helped a lot, is that when I'm in the flow state, if I'm feeling good that day, or if I'm sick as a dog that day, and I'm writing it, 2 weeks later when I reread it, I can't tell what day I was feeling good or feeling bad, because it's all just words. And a reader is not going to know, okay, this book was written in 2 weeks, or this book was written in 3 months. They're not going to know it necessarily reading it, unless it's full of errors or something, and then hopefully you've got an editor or a proofreader to fix that kind of stuff. But,
or you've done a public challenge about writing 3 books in 3 months.
Yes, there's that too. So I've put myself out there by saying, hey, I'm going to do this in 3 months. But if someone wants to give me grief about that, then that's fine. I can handle it. It's no big deal.
I think it's a great extra angle that comes with the book. Like, it has a story even before the actual plot of the book was ever conceived.
Right. Yeah, and I think you had Chris Fox on here recently, right?
Yeah.
So
we always have Chris Fox on here recently. Yes.
Yeah.
He comes when he wants.
So his 21-day challenge was great, right? He had a whole following of people watching his videos and keeping up on on his blog posts and stuff, and that kind of developed a kind of a grassroots following, and I was there with him too, right? And so it kind of gets a life of its own. You know, you see somebody making a challenge and hitting those daily marks, and then you get that book out finally, and everyone feels like they own a piece of it because they got to be there from the very beginning. You know, so that's just kind of cool. I mean, I don't know if that'll happen for me or for anybody else, but it was neat to see, and he's doing well. So that's awesome for Chris. Congratulations, Chris.
Yeah.
We will actually have him back on at the end of April to discuss the whole thing, including how his marketing went.
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, I was just saying the marketing part is probably the next thing that everybody wants to know, because he's doing well. So.
Right.
I forgot where I left off. You guys help me out. What question next?
I guess to follow up, like Ivy, you touched on that your editing tends to take up most, or at least double the amount of time that you spend writing it. In that same sense of writing fast and with pulp writing, you don't know whether that argument of quality versus quantity. What steps do you take to keep that pulp speed and then ensure that extra quality?
Yeah, so with the dictation piece, I've noticed that, once you continue to train your dragon, you continue to input things into it, it does get more accurate. So what I'm fixing on the editing stages now are less about the words themselves and typos and things like that. I found other nuances that Dragon introduces, like it doesn't understand like didn't, it'll put just did. So I got to watch out for things like that, or it'll miss words, which I do on my own with typing. I don't need that help. So that, it's things like that. But oftentimes I'm pulling something apart and I'm putting it back together. So that's, the pulp speed is really, just getting the bare bones, of the story down. I'm usually adding 10 to 15% of my word count on that's first round edit. So I'm really fleshing things out and putting the details in and all of those things that I was thinking in my head but didn't actually come out. So I think those are things that help with the quality aspect for sure. I mean, I'm making things more robust from a reader standpoint. And then I do use beta readers as well to help me with, did I miss something? Is there something lacking in the story itself? So, from a plot perspective, I have a couple of super fans, which is just, it's so awesome to have those readers who will read anything that you put out and then, tell you how much they love you, but then go, but there's this one thing. They're also pretty honest with you if there's something that just falls flat for them. So from making sure that quality aspect is there, that's what I'm doing.
Good answer. Jim?
Yeah, I'd say fairly similar. I think at this point, I think Ivy and I have been writing long enough that the little typos, the commas, and the word choices, that kind of stuff is just second nature. So you don't really think about that kind of stuff. When I get to the editing stage, I'm really more worried about the senses. Like, am I hitting the 5 senses? Am I bringing out the sensory details right? Are the characters consistent? Is this a good story? Are things that happen early in the book reflected later in the book? Am I planting the right clues or the right red herrings, that kind of stuff? And especially in this book I'm writing now, it took me a couple days to kind of get a feel for the characters. So one of the things I'll have to do is I got more confident with the characters as I was writing through the book. So what I'll need to do is go back and kind of revise the first couple chapters just a little bit to make them a little bit more of a coherent whole. And to make the characters consistent. But for the most part, when I'm editing, I'm focused more on what I want the reader to feel and to relate to, and to make sure that the characters are interesting and relatable. Because I think by and large, readers read for character. I think character is probably the most important thing, and I want to make sure that those characters grab the reader from page 1 and can carry them from chapter to chapter through to the end. That's the hope, anyway.
Maybe you guys mentioned this and I might have missed, but so when you're doing the outlining stuff, do you do a lot of character building before or world building before? Do either of you do that?
I start doing more after I'm like into it, which is backwards. I know. I'm writing a lot of either serials or a series, and then as I get to know the characters better, And that's, again, what I'm doing in the revision stage is I know them really well by the end. I have at least an idea of who they are, like who they are, how old they are, what their family background is, what they do, some of the emotional challenges, the external and internal conflicts, and then I go. And then you learn a lot about them as you're writing them. So then I go back, and that's part of the details that I flesh out later.
So I have a long history of being a gamer, and I've played a lot of role-playing games, especially pen and paper role-playing games. D&D, Star Wars, all that stuff. And so in my long years as a gamer, character development was always huge, right? Like what was this character's backstory leading into the start of the game? What was he or she like? What was he or she thinking? How did he grow up? I played a Star Trek game for a long time, and we would make up these huge, elaborate histories of our characters, so that when we started gaming, we had that character so fully in our head that we knew what we were doing from the first session, and to help.
And does that help the gaming experience at all, Jim?
Absolutely. Because it's almost improv acting in some cases, and we would even go. I go through and I cast my show. So like my main character, I go through and I look for a picture of an actor or an actress who I can visualize that person being, and then I plug that into Scrivener, just so that I know I'm writing this person's scene. There's that picture that just gives me a cue, and sometimes I'll even cast somebody just for their voice. Right, just so I can get a sense of their cadence and their rhythms, so that I can kind of add that into the texture of the dialogue. So so I say I do some character building ahead of time, and then so the character building and then the picture are the two big pieces I need, and then it's just a matter of making sure it's consistent from chapter to chapter and from the beginning of the book to the end of the book.
Excellent.
Cool.
Who's next? Cool. Yes. Erica, you've been quiet. Or X, you got another question? Go ahead.
I was just going to say I often incorporate a lot of the stuff that comes in from role-playing games into writing as well. A lot of any kind of those campaign books of Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeon World, whatever it is, all of those are packed with just, all lovely little good nuggets that you can just, either create a whole character from, create a whole world from, or just go off and actually write a goddamn book about it. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being a GM or a referee or whatever it's called in whatever game you're running is huge to help you learn how to not just how to tell a story, but also how to present it and how to tailor that story to a specific audience. Right, because whatever group of players you have at your table on any given game, they may want different things from that game, right? You may have your power gamers, and then you got your heavy duty role players, and you got someone who's just there because their girlfriend's there or whatever, and you need to be able to tailor that session and that story to each person. And I think in a way we're kind of doing that with our readers too, because I think each genre has a slightly different readership, and they want different buttons pushed, and that's a lifelong journey to figure out what buttons to push for each genre.
Ain't that the truth?
Well, and unlike with putting out a book and waiting for the masses to read it and review it, at least when you're doing those campfire, improv, role-playing game type of exercises of storytelling, you are immediately getting back beta reader reactions from that.
Yeah.
So you're going to know what you did wrong if you have dungeon mastered a session and everyone had a bad time. You're probably not a great storyteller if that happened, or you killed them all, in which case, poo-poo.
Very
Just
true.
poo-poo. Boy, keeping it really neat here.
Yeah, this is me being Canadian. Poo-poo to you. Yes.
Well, I had another question that's actually going a little away from the writing speed, but now that both of you got lots of books out, Ivy's got a ton of books out, what sort of launches were you guys doing for these books? Can you talk about that at all?
Oh, goodness. So for the last 3 that I did, so that would be the Urban Dwellers series, if you're looking at my Amazon page. So that would be Silence That Sizzles, Secrets That Simmer, and Binds That Burn. So those are the 3 that I released March 2nd, 9th, and 16th. And the idea was try to get me as close to a Netflix kind of idea as possible, which I'm terribly impatient. So if I have a book done, like I want to put it out there and I just want to go. And usually I'm then moving on to the next thing, which I need to, really slow down and think about the marketing aspect a little bit more and be a little bit more intentional. So that's what I was trying to do with that particular launch. People didn't have to wait, because I'm notorious for writing cliffhangers, and people, they love to hate that. So, they're not waiting a long time for the books. They knew that it was coming out, the next week. And then I put a ton of promo for me behind book one in March. And so that, that had a nice little spike at the beginning, of course, and then things have, I need to continue pumping more money into the promo to be able to keep that going. But it ties into the Gray Elf Grizzly series that I released last fall. So I'm trying to interconnect everything too, so that if somebody really gets into this world, they actually have two different series that they can explore that are also connected. So that's my idea of trying to, hook people in, and I'm really looking at the long game too. So I really want to build a tribe of people who really enjoy what I write, and that those are the people that I want to write for.
Yeah, that's the concept of finding your thousand true fans, right?
Exactly.
And then
exactly.
just cater to them forever. Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm not there yet. So I just have the one series out so far, 3 books, and I released the first one in October. And when I released the first one, I put number 2 up on pre-order the same day, just to try to get some momentum going, so readers could say, here's book 1, oh, book 2's coming. And then as soon as book 2 came out, I had book 3 on pre-order just to see how that would work. And like Ivy, sales were okay the first couple weeks or so, and then the sub-genre that I was writing in, Weird Western, as far as I can tell, it's not a huge readership, and the covers weren't probably as effective as they could have been. So it's hard for me to say that it was effective or not effective, because I think I didn't help myself from the beginning. So I'm trying a different tactic with the urban fantasy series. I'm still going to write the first 3 books before I release any of them. But I'm still figuring out a strategy, so I'm a little bit behind Ivy in that respect, because I don't have nearly the titles that she has yet. But fortunately, the self-publishing community is super generous, and so many people are doing stuff right now that it's just nice to sit back and just take the nuggets from everybody and figure out what the plan is going forward.
Yeah, I think probably the most effective thing that I've found so far was being part of a multi-author bundle. I mean, It really, I had the first installment of the Gray Elf Grizzly series in a box set that released last summer, and that box set stayed in the top 200 of Amazon for about 6 weeks. Just, there was some promo push behind it, but really it was just on the strength of the box set. And then, I released 2, 3, and 4 of that series, and that took me all the way through the summer. I mean, it was just a really phenomenal way to pull in new readers without having to really do anything other than be in that box set. And then I was in another one fairly recently too that's also done, has done pretty well. Not as well as that very first one, but I've noticed that has really helped, bring fresh readers to me and to my series. So then, and I always have some place for them to go. I'm always thinking about where I'm going to have people go when they finish reading that snippet or that, that first installment. Mm-hmm. So there's another place for them to go.
Nice. Yeah, I found that I haven't been in a bundle yet, but I know that there are a lot of writers who are leading multi-author promotions, and being able to actually have a product to put into one of those promotions has helped a lot. I've had more success with the multi-author promotions than I have doing any paid advertising on my own. Like, I did a free bargain booksy ad and had a bunch of downloads, but I actually had better success by joining somebody's multi-author promotion, just to get more authors working together to get our books out there just in front of a whole bunch of readers, and doing the cross-pollination from your mailing list and my mailing list and that guy's mailing list. All of a sudden we're stronger as a group as we are individually with our little pieces. But I love the multi-author bundle idea, and just hopefully I'll be able to generate enough content to get there. Now, Ivy, I have a question for you, actually. Are you wide with all your stuff, or is it all on Amazon?
I currently all my stuff is with Amazon.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So I have other things under my other pen name that are wide, and it's kind of like the golden handcuffs. It really is. Unless I have the only way I've ever found to get traction on other platforms has been through getting BookBub ads. And you know, those are few and far between, but that's the only thing that I've really found that's been effective in driving any kind of traffic to books in other places. So hence I'm with Amazon and I'm in Kindle Select, so that's where I happen to be.
So your bundles, all the bundles that you're in, are also Amazon Kindle only?
They are. Yep,
oh,
they are.
Interesting. Okay.
But they were set up specifically that way, so all of the authors knew that was the intention. And then we also talk about, you know, are we going into it just to get exposure, to get the reads, the page reads, or is this a, you know, if this was a bundle that you were going to look for letters, you know, your USA Today and your New York Times bestseller, then that's something that has to be wide. So you have to have everybody, you know, in agreement on that. And a lot of people in the that I've been talking to in the romance genre are in Kindle Select, so that made it pretty easy
Got
to
it.
find collaborators. There we go.
Right.
I can talk.
Great. Thank you.
What are both of your guys' goals in terms of writing careers? Just out of curiosity.
That's a great question. It goes back. So I mean, ultimately, yeah. Wouldn't I love to write full time? Sure, absolutely. But I have a great job, you know, and I enjoy doing that. And what my writing career has afforded to me is when my husband was laid off 3 years ago, he was able to go out and pursue his dream, you know, career. He started his own business, you know, and that just takes time. And so I was able to help support my family, you know, by having a second income stream through my writing income. And that's a fantastic thing to have, you know, being able to have that. And it's something that, you know, goes on in, you know, perpetuity. As long as those books are out there, they can sell. So once they're out there, it's a great thing. So I would say right now for me, I'm just enjoying writing and, you know, seeing what can happen with it. But, you know, maybe down the road it will be a full-time career. If it's not, I'm not unhappy with that either.
You, Jim?
So I think my long-term goal has always been to be focusing on the writing full-time. And I think once my son came along, it really accelerated that to where I'd really like to be home more and to watch him grow up and to be there and be active and either I don't know that I would necessarily homeschool, but just to be more present as he's growing up, it would be really nice. And I guess I'm fortunate in that my wife has a great government job with benefits and everything, so she probably won't be leaving that anytime soon. And in the DC metro area, there's government contracting jobs everywhere, and that's what I work for as a government contractor. And I'm actually starting a new job next week, and I'm happy with the work I do, but it's not necessarily the life fulfilling kind of thing. But it does give me the freedom to write, not part-time, but this is a full-time job. So I'm writing and working are two full-time jobs plus raising the baby. But ideally, I would be making enough from my writing that I could say goodbye to the day job and just turn the writing into a full-time job and take care of my son at the same time. But in the short term, I'm making it work and I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And I know that as I continue to write books, because I'm going to be writing until I can't write anymore, because I'm a writer. I've been doing this for 30 years. Hopefully, I'll get another 40 years out of it. And now that self-publishing is here and probably not going away, I can write until I'm decrepit and old. And I guess beaming our stories directly from our brain into the Kindle or whatever the next technology leap is. I'll be writing until I can't, and that's just because I'm not in this for like the short term, get a bestseller hit and then get out. I'm doing this. I'm looking at the very, very long term. I think Ivy talked about the long term, perspective, and I think that's something I picked up from Dean and Chris Rush as well. Is that if you're a writer, write a short story, write a novella, write a novel, just keep writing something, and just keep publishing and keep working at it, and do your marketing and your advertising to some extent. But I think I agree with a lot of people who say that the best advertising is another book. Keep building that backlist and keep and maybe diversify your genres just a little bit, unless you're really good in one genre. But write different things and just get other readers, potential readers looking at you, so that you can build your base of potential readers, and then maybe something will spark off and you'll hit the big bestseller lists or whatever, or you can be a perfectly comfortable mid-lister and just do fine. Sky's the limit, really. If you put the work in, you got to put the work in.
And speaking of putting the work in, how many hours on average do both of you put in writing, just in the typical day?
Oh, goodness.
Well, not even writing and everything else associated with it, since you both work full time and.
Oh man.
I joke that I turn off my computer for my day job, and then I turn on my computer for my my personal computer, and then I'm going to bed, like at 11 or 11:30 at night. So it all flows together for me. So I would say on any average day, I'm probably at least spending 2 or 3 hours at least, if not more, thinking about writing, doing something related to my writing career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, if you're asking for just the fingertips on keyboard, I can tell you what that is because I know how many sprints I do in a day. But if you're talking about the bigger picture, cosmic, how much time do I spend thinking about my writing and doing my writing business and all that stuff? I mean, I think it's 24/7 unless it's unless my brain's turned off when I'm sleeping because I'm constantly thinking about characters and situations and plot ideas and just general ideas. Living life. You read something in the newspaper or see something online and go, oh, that's something I could throw into a story, or that's something.
All the time.
That it just if your brain's a funnel, you're constantly feeding it, and eventually something will pop out the other end and say, oh, well, this is a potential story, and here's a character, and here's a situation, and look, you've got something new here. And the trick is to not get carried away with that and get lost on your current project, and put that somewhere that you can remember it. Write it down as a note card or in Scrivener or Word or whatever, however you like to keep track of your notes. Put that down, and then finish the current project you're working on. So I mean, really, to ask how much time do I spend on writing? It's like that's my whole life. I've always got characters in my head. I've got plots in my head. It's constant, and I think most writers would probably agree that it's tricky to turn the voices off, right? Because it's always there. It's a cool feeling, but it's also scary too, I guess. Looking from the outside, it'd be kind of scary to be schizophrenic like that.
People ask me that all the time. They ask me when they look at all of the titles that I have, and they're like, how do you always come up with these ideas? And it's like they don't stop. Whatever I'm working on, it's constant. So Jim, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's always an idea or 100 there.
Sure. I mean, all you have to do is, walk into a mall, right? Go to a mall and just sit down, and then just watch people and make up stories. Why is that person doing that? What's that person doing there? What are they talking about? And I think authors, they may not admit it, but we are some of the best voyeurs out there because we listen in on conversations, and you don't know that we're listening in on it, but you're material for our next book, and you may not realize it. But I hear some great conversations at coffee shops and cafes and stuff because people start talking, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, that's a great story idea, or that's a great piece of conversation, and that really helps with dialogue too, right? Because you hear how people talk and how they say things and how they say things without saying something. That's a great way to get some detail into your stories.
Yep, you can immediately find your local asshole and kill him off in your book.
Yeah,
go
totally.
down to the coffee shop. You'll recognize him. He has a soul patch.
My husband hates the game where you try and just make up a story about what that person's doing, like you said when you people watch in the mall. He really hates it. So it's because you're not thinking about writing stuff, and he's like, oh. But he puts up to it to a point.
He's a non-author. That's right.
Right.
Why do I care what they're doing?
So we have a question from the audience. This is from Kate. She wants to know what you guys do about getting reviews and newsletter sign-ups.
And what's our worst system, D6 or D20? But no more RPG stuff. Eric has put her foot down.
D20.
So funny. I have no idea what that means, so it's a good thing you do. Yeah, I'm like, what?
Roll 20 dice.
Yeah.
So getting reviewers and usually the sign-ups. How do you guys go about doing that?
It's been a slog. I would say that. So once I got a couple hundred people on my mailing list, which was achieved using that multi-author bundle, where I had a little bit of a lag in that case between that first book and the second book, and so then I was pointing people to my mailing list in the meantime to stay up to date. So when that when that went up in the charts and there were a lot of eyes on that, I got quite a few signups last summer. So once I had about 100 people on my list, I started asking people if they wanted to be a beta reader for me, or an ARC reader. So you have the option. If you look at my website, I have signups either way. You could be a beta reader or an ARC reader. And I've had a couple of people that have really just come through that way, that consistently I can ask them to do an ARC for me, and that's all they just want to read my newest stuff before anybody else, and they'll leave a review, which is fantastic. I use NetGalley as well, which is not as effective as it used to be, but I am a subscriber at this point, so I have that through September, and I get some reviews that way. You have to have a very thick skin if you decide to use NetGalley, because they're brutal if they don't like it. Brutal. And you see it show up on Goodreads often before you see it show up on Amazon. So that's another way. And then I recently found another service that I've tried out that was really phenomenal for getting a response rate on reviews. So I think it's trial and error. And it just, until you get a mailing list where you have, a lot of people that you can ask, knowing that probably only 10% of them will actually leave a review, or a review in the place that you want it. That's the other thing. It's a slog. It's still hard. So you look at my latest, The Urban Dwellers, the book 1. I have 50 reviews on that. That released on March 2nd. Like that's the first book that I've had that many reviews on this quickly.
Well, go ahead, Jim. Would you want to answer that question?
I don't think I have much of an answer to it. So I've got a total of five reviews on my first book, and nothing on the second or third. I think I've got 24 people on my mailing list, so it's pretty modest right now. I think I've got call to actions at the end of each book, so the standard things you would do. But I've sold or given away several thousand copies of at least the first book, and like I said, 5 reviews. So you can't make people review the book. You can ask them nicely, but I think it's something so far out of my control that I really don't worry about it. Chasing reviews isn't what I'm doing, what I'm looking for. I'm writing stories, and I'm trying to reach people and to move people and to try to get them into my camp, as it were, to be one of my 10,000 or 1,000 true fans, right? Chasing reviews isn't that important to me. I think it's more important to find those people, and as far as building the mailing list, it's just getting product out there, right? It's getting yourself in front of people and being active. And I mean, like this writing challenge that I'm doing, I've actually had more people contact me and talk to me over private messages and Facebook and stuff, just building that reputation as someone who can talk to them and stuff. So it's like Ivy said, it's a hard slog to find reviews, and just for me, it fails my Wibbo test. Would I be better off writing? And so I could spend money and time on Facebook trying to generate leads and ads and stuff, or I can just write the next book. And for where I am right now, it's writing the next book is much more important.
Yeah, and cliffhangers. From a plot standpoint, I mean, cliffhangers can help get people on your mailing list. If you have that little bit of lag, and they're really into the story. I mean, they will probably. For me, it shows up in my reviews, all the time. God, it's a heck cliffhanger. I hate it. But that's probably somebody who probably signed up for my mailing list because they were that passionate about it, that they were that into the story, right. And then they'll keep going with me because they want that last book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, they complain, but they still read them.
Right.
Yes. I am a cliffhanger queen. It's like I can't help myself. Those last 3 books were all supposed to be standalones, and I ended book 2 on a major cliffhanger. I just couldn't help myself. But that's also was a strategy for me to test when we talk about pricing and romance. And I know we don't really have time to jump into anything about that, but in paranormal romance, specifically in the shifter genre, it's really hard to get away from the 99-cent price point. And so my first 2 books are 99 cents. I ended on a huge cliffhanger in book 2, and then my 3rd book is $2.99. So I'm trying that experiment to at least try and get a little bit higher price point on at least a later book.
Would you say this last 3-book set has been your most successful launch though?
It probably has. Yes, I would say. Being able to produce content quickly for folks, and then they get into it, and then they want more of it. So it's all right there for them now.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yes. Did we miss anything?
I have one question that I think we can probably end it up on. For those who are interested in taking up this Pulp Speed, what are your recommendations on how they can go about it and how they can get themselves to actually put their butt in the chair and type the word?
I would say, anything that you can do around the whole concept of National Novel Writing Month, and there's a book around that. So 50,000 words in 30 days. That's a short novel. That's a respectable length. To at least publish and say you published a novel. And there's some great, tips in there that I think are really evergreen around being able to put your butt in the seat and write. And then you can start thinking about some of the different tips and techniques that Jim and I have been talking about to really kind of take it to the next level. But if you're not even sitting down and writing, you can't, you're not going to be doing anything. So it's really, I think, at least starting at the beginning and thinking about how to make sure you have your butt in your seat every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say so. Practice. Try to write every day, even if it's like do a 5-minute sprint, do a 10-minute sprint, whatever you can do in a day. Just try to get into the consistent habit of showing up at the keyboard every day and writing something. Whether it's like 20 minutes of stream of consciousness, crap onto the keyboard, at least you're there doing something. And if you think you don't have the time in a day, one great technique I learned a while back is to really force yourself to sit down and document what you do in a day in 15-minute increments. You're going to hate it because it's going to suck, because you're going to have to actually be honest with yourself and say, well, I spent an hour playing a video game, or I spent 2 hours watching television, or whatever. And if you do that honestly for a week, and you really look at that and you see what you do in a week, you're going to see blocks of time that you can actually turn into actual productive writing time if it's something you want. If you don't really want it, be honest with yourself. I know it's hard to be honest with yourself, but that is the most important thing I did to help me understand how I was spending the hours in my day and how I could turn some of those wasted hours into something much more productive that would get me to the goals that I want to get to. And I agree with Ivy completely that NaNoWriMo is a great goal. It may be out of the reach for some people, but that's okay, because you should be setting goals that you feel like are a little bit out of your reach. Because if you miss it, then that's fine. But if you achieve it, then you're like, well, this is a great goal that I could achieve, and then push yourself a little harder next time. If you can do 1,000 words a day, try to do 1,500, or try to do 2,000. Keep pushing, right. And but also remember that we didn't just start doing this, right? We didn't just sit down and start cranking out 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words a day. This is years of practice, and like a video, or like a violinist, or a musician, or a painter, or whatever. You got to put the practice in, and be kind to yourself. If you're, try not to compare yourself to other writers, right? Like you look at Amanda Lee, who's doing 50,000 words a week. Don't compare yourself to her, because you're not there yet. It's okay. You'll get there eventually if you want it bad enough. But I think the comparison game is really dangerous for a lot of new writers, especially, and you can get caught in that trap of not feeling like you're good enough or fast enough or whatever. And you have to work at the speed that works for you.
That was a good one to end on. That was great.
Mm-hmm. The game of comparison.
Nailed it, Jim. Nailed it.
The game of comparison is about as good as Game of Thrones if you lose.
Yes. Yes, that is a death trap. All right. Well, thank you, both of you, Ivy and Jim. It was great talking to you guys.
Well, thank you very much for having us on. I really appreciate it.
Yes. I want to send out a quick reminder that we we could use a review. We're not necessarily chasing down reviews, but we could use a review. So you got time, just give us a review on iTunes, that sort of thing. Also, check out the blog. Got lots of good stuff, lots of good content on there. selfpublishingroundtable.com to get all your latest news and stuff. I think we have a blab coming up on Sunday, correct?
Yes, we do. Recording at the usual time for anyone who wants to watch it live or catch it on Monday when it's posted. Jamie Dodge will be joining us this week. We thought it was time to put him in the hot seat since he likes to come in and harass us while we're doing it. Also,
Screw you, Jamie. Hot seat
next week we're going to be interviewing a woman called Libby Fisher-Hellman, who will be talking about reviving a series that she hadn't touched in 10 years. So we'll see how that goes. And since everyone keeps mentioning Amanda M. Lee, we will be interviewing her in the middle of May.
Oh, brilliant.
And another fist pump, yes.
Good catch.
Yep. And just a quick note for those who are interested or who have already submitted a book for the Self-Publishing Roundtable's multi-author cross-promo giveaway. PayPal still hates me. It's an issue that's been going on a week now, but I hope to get it resolved soon. So we will be charging anyone whose submission has been accepted as soon as PayPal has decided I'm nice. We haven't forgotten about you.
Which may take a while.
Oh!
We haven't forgotten about you.
Apparently, PayPal have been being mean to her, so who knows?
Oh my God!
She might be very angry when she actually gets hold of them.
I actually signed one of them with. I asked the question at the end: what do I need to do to get this fixed? Do I need to sacrifice 14 virgin goats? They didn't respond to that part. Yes. So if you're still interested in that, all the information's on the website. Just go and check it out, and we will eventually get back to you. So far, we've had 47 applicants. I'm hoping for 100. Can you imagine how many readers that would be looking at our books? I mean, come on, sign up. You've got until, what did I say, the 23rd of April to get your submissions in, and hopefully you'll be able to pay the $10 before then.
Yeah, I think I signed up, so go sign up.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Nice. Excellent.
Okay, you can finish it now, Wade.
Okay, no problem. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching live. Love you guys' comments and stuff. And maybe if anybody wants to stick around for an after party, I'll throw a link in for you guys. And I'm glad I get to say this again after a couple-week hiatus. Xavier, you got anything to say?
Yeah, it's good to be back, Wade. It's good to be back. Adios, internets.